the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors for May 18th, 2022 to order. It's 6:01 p.m. First item on the agenda is agenda review. I would like to add one item to section 7C where it currently says board retreat discussion. I would like to add in summer meeting schedule. So we can discuss abbreviating our meeting schedule for the summer there. And I believe that's the only change. Could I please have a motion to accept the agenda as revised?
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. All in favor? Please answer the question. Al,
Yes.
Nina,
Aye.
Peter,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Ryer,
Yes.
Nilda, yes. So motion carries 8-0. 9-0. 6, 7, 8-0. Thank you. 8-0. Sorry about that. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please rise and join me for Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the visitor section. Is there anyone in the public in that room with you folks that wishes to speak?
I'm here for the goals subcommittee.
Okay.
Is that later?
That's
Later?
Yeah.
Looks like we
Okay,
don't.
there's no one in the meeting room that wants to speak. Is there anyone here remote that would like to speak? Please put your name in the chat along with the town of residence.
Nilda, we do have one, Dr. John Williamson from St. Albans Sound so far.
Okay, well, so since we have a person, I'm going to read the prelude here. The public comment visitor section of the meeting is an opportunity for community members to address issues of concern about policy, budget, or administrative matters, or to share ideas about how we can work together to improve our schools. We value input and respect divergent views. We ask you to limit your remarks to a time constraint of 2 minutes and refrain from airing grievances with individual members of the school community, including respecting the privacy of the students and parents. Those who wish, who are attending remotely can type their name in the comment section and state their name, full name and town of residence when they're ready to speak. So I guess we have Jen Williamson. So Jen, would you like to start? You're muted. Okay, you're good.
So I know all of you don't know me, but I am from Buffalo, New York, and I grew up on the east side of Buffalo, which is the Black section of Buffalo. And I went to school less than a mile away from the top supermarket. What I'm seeing in Buffalo and what everybody is talking about is that there's this sense of othering of the terrorist who killed 10 people, 11 people, I lost track. And it really is a shame because this person could have come from Buffalo. This sentiment is alive and well in Buffalo, despite its motto of the city of good neighbors. St. Albans has a motto too, all are welcome here, but we need to be very clear that what we don't want to welcome is people like the terrorist who shot up the people in Buffalo. So I would love to see that the Black Lives Matter flag rise at all of the schools, not just the high school. I think it's really important to send a message that we do not tolerate racism here in our town, here in our schools, because if we don't say it out loud, if we don't tell people, people are going to assume that it is okay, that racism is allowed here. And I just want to make that very clear. So please raise the Black Lives Matter flag at all of the Maple Run schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for those that are here for that section of the meeting, the request is to have the flag be at all the schools, just for that.
Neil DeGrant has a comment.
I have a question, actually.
Yes,
for
Grant.
Dr. Williamson. I think I understand from context, you use the word othering. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, just that they're basically trying to find any way to make him seem like he's not one of us, you know, so that, oh, he has a mental health issue, he was on, you know, medications, he was from Binghamton, so that's 200 miles away, it's not here, it's not our town. They're just othering him so that it seems like we aren't responsible for this. And I want all white people to take responsibility. And when your cousin, your uncle, your dad says something racist at the dinner table, call them out for it, you know, and really start to stand up, because until we stand up to each other, nothing's ever going to change. Black people have been begging us for millennia. I mean, for a really long time, and nothing has changed. Until we start holding each other accountable, it's going to stay the same. So we have to do the work. And sometimes that means we have to admit that he was one of ours. He was a white man who heard that his numbers were going down and that Black people's numbers were going up. And he got so mad, he drove from Binghamton to Buffalo just to shoot up Black people. And that's just, I don't want that happening here. I don't want that happening anywhere. The fact that it happened in my hometown is just, you know, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking really to see that this has happened there to people who I'm connected with. And it's just, I don't want to see that here. So anything that we can do to let the broader community know that we are anti-racism, I think would be truly beneficial for our community.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other persons on line that wish to address the board?
No one's indicated anything in the chat. Nilda.
Okay, thanks, John. All right, well, hearing none, we are going to move on with our agenda. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything out to be addressed independently? Actually, I would. The minutes of May 11th, under the section, under the Abby vote, the results say that the vote was 7.5 to 1.5 to 0, and it actually is 7.5 to 0 to 1.5 because there were 2 abstentions of the half of the 1.5 votes. So just to make that clear, if we could accept the consent agenda with that minor edit, that would be great. Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is old business COVID update. Bill, would you give us the COVID update for this time of day?
I like your time of day piece, Nilda. It's not changing.
Target.
Well, it is a moving target. I don't have a lot to give you on the COVID update, except for we are experiencing some staffing issues that have really arisen in the past 2 weeks. Specifically here at SATEC. We are seeing them in some of our other schools, but not to the degree. We've had a couple of days that we've approached 30 staff out here, but been able to keep the schools open. So staff are working really hard. I thank them for what they do, and I've said that many times this year. I don't think I can say it enough. And thank Angela behind me, because I know she's been working really hard to try to figure out how to move have people move around and cover multiple places, and some people, I caught Angela last week covering 3 positions herself, so, I thank all of them, and my fellow administrators I know that are online have been doing the same thing, so, it's hard to give you any student data, just because of the way, we still are putting up our daily counts, up on the websites. I saw them Monday, I didn't check yesterday or today, but we put up those daily numbers. But we don't actually have accurate data because we may not get all the illnesses reported from students to our nurse's office, so. And, you know, and I can say our tests are being used, but they were nowhere near the quantity that we were using earlier in the year, so. We still
Are
have
people
some.
still able to get those?
They are, if anyone wants to have the tests, they're more than welcome to get them, they can ask through the school, how each school has it set up a little differently to how to receive them, but we still have a stockpile of them, both LAMP and rapid tests, so. I think that's the
Thank
best
you.
I
Any
can
questions for Bill?
Yeah, one quick question. Do we have clear guidelines somewhere around when to test, prior to going to school, correct?
You need to give me some more detail on what you're asking for.
Well, there's a resource online or through email that parents should be able to reference to know when their child should be taking a test prior to attending school.
Yeah, if they were out sick for COVID and they're coming back, and we've given that information about testing and
Yeah.
the 5 days and after 5 days, but also the accuracy of those tests are not, I mean, if someone has been diagnosed, has been tested positive for COVID, then they're most likely, from what we're hearing, that's changing as the variants have changed, but they're gonna test positive for COVID for a while.
Right.
And usually 90 days are the guidelines.
So is the reduction in the use of tests due to a reduction in the need for tests or a reduction in compliance with our guideline?
I can't give you an answer either
Okay.
way, because it's free, take the test, take the testing supplies.
Okay,
There's no mandatory piece for students,
great. Okay,
and there's no mandatory for teachers either. That's all been pulled away.
okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Bill? Next item on the agenda is 6B, implicit bias and anti-racism training. Do you have an update for us, Bill?
We just set a date with the contractor that you all worked to create a discourse group for next week for John, Alexis, and myself to sit down and start the kickoff meeting for all that work. And I hope that by the end of June, maybe even the next meeting, we'll start to put a timeline together for them to go out and start reaching out to community groups to have a discussion of their hopes and dreams for the work that goes forward. As you remember, we're not gonna start with a forum first, we're gonna start with select groups. And we'll invite any other groups that we may not select, because I'm not gonna say we know them all. So we'll put out invitations for that as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Bill on that? Next item 8C is setting goals. You have information on attachment 6C. We requested a subcommittee. We have on our agenda tonight to appoint the subcommittee members. We have a list of members available. There is no need for executive session as long as we are not talking about any specifics about any of these individuals. So if we're going to speak in just in general, we can take this up here. So I need a motion to appoint committee members to the subcommittee for setting goals to get this discussion going, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Joanna?
Joanna made a second. Thank you. Bill, who's our spokesperson for this? Is it you or
I think it's Grant.
Grant? Okay. Grant, are you prepared to talk about this?
Yeah, you know, as noted, we're looking to convene a subcommittee for goal setting. We have a sort of broad outline for what that subcommittee should be doing. We're going to leave it up to the subcommittee once it's formed to set up the details. Basically, it's a way to organize sort of outreach to the community, to get sort of holistic view of what we think the goals and objectives for the organization ought to be. We have 4 board members that we would like to have serve on this committee, as well as, I believe, 6 community members.
Yep.
If it's the 6 people we talked about last time, it's okay if I just read down through everybody?
Yeah, you can read their names.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the committee that we're proposing, starting with board members, is myself, Ryer, Susan, and Joanna. And the community members are Demetrius Bolduk, Christy Marcus, Erica Dettel, James Galloway, Nakuma Palzuski, and Joyce Santiago. We have received applications essentially in the form of email or email threads from all these. The board members on the committee have reviewed those conversations, and we support the appointment of all the names I just read to that subcommittee.
Thank you. Any questions for Grant related to that report? Okay, so I guess we're ready to vote on that motion of the 4 board members and the 6 applicants that were listed in the report. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Al, no, Al,
No, Al. Yeah.
Al, sorry, Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie.
She stepped out for a second.
Okay, Jack,
Yes.
Briar,
Yes.
Susan is not here, right?
Here.
And Nilda, yes. So motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7.5 to I guess Katie's going to be an abstain for now. So motion carries. However, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the public participation part of the meeting. Excuse me one sec. Excuse me one sec. Thank you. Sorry, I had a delivery. So 8D, policy 821, public participation at board meetings. So this was the discussion that we were supposed to have after our consultant, Phil Gore, was going to have a training with us at 5 o'clock this evening. As you all got a notice, he had illness in the family and therefore was unable to meet with us tonight. So I would like to suggest that we table this for 2 weeks from tonight so that we have the opportunity to have our training from 5 to 6 before we address this. So if I could please have a motion for that.
Move that we table this till the future meeting.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Joanna. I think Joanna seconded it. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of tabling, call out yay or a or yes or whatever. Al,
Yay.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Ryer,
Yes.
and Nilda, yes. Thank you. So we'll table that and we'll see that on our next agenda. Next item on the agenda is new business, item 7A, student representative to the board. We have the first reading of the policy, which is attachment 7A. Can I please have a motion to, should I move to accept the first reading? Yes, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can I have a motion to accept the first reading for discussion, please?
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. I think.
Grant did.
Grant, okay, Grant. Jack raised his hand, but I think Grant was louder. All right, thank you. Okay, discussion. We have in our packet attachment 7A, and we also have a student here to speak to this, correct? Or is she speaking to the other item?
No, Leah's here for that.
Yes, the policy.
Okay, Leah, Faith Fitzgerald, hi. Leah, can you give us a little intro to the policy?
Yeah, so looking at the policy, we wanted to make a kind of like a more open.
A little bit louder, please, Leah.
An open policy around having student representation. The group met and decided that it would be best to have okay, can you hear me better like this?
Yes.
Closer to the mic you can get, the better.
Okay, get real close to my face. So we decided that we would like to have rotating representation to help with, because students do have a lot of stuff going on throughout the week, as we can see. So we decided that having a couple students on the board would reflect more what the students would like, as well as having a 2-year like terms. I think, as we kind of discussed before, the policy that we made also kind of reflects how we want other students to be joining the committee, on having it being very open to the committee to make those decisions, because we do not want anything to be more of like a popularity contest, or kind of how students, we want a student that are added to the board to be very open and wanting to help the community more or less. So we kind of have a more open policy on that regard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone have any questions for Leah? Yes, Ryan.
So I have 3 questions for you, Leah. One is, there doesn't really seem to be a setup for the initial seeding of the program. So right now it reads that it would start in April. I'm wondering if that needs to be included in how we would set it up initially. I'm assuming we'd want it set up right away. So I'm wondering if we need to have language that dictates how it's set up then, and if, for instance, a student can't do it halfway through the year, how we add a member, or, kind of bump it up so that it's a full 5 people. That was one question.
Have more than 5, you mean?
No, so let's say you have 5 students and one of the students halfway through the year says, I can't commit to this, my homework is really wild, I have too much, I can't commit to that, I need to step away from it. We need to have language that dictates how we would then put another person in. I would assume we wouldn't want to wait till April.
Yeah. That is a good question. I haven't really thought about that on those regards, but it does allow for having those 5 students to have other students kind of pick up where that person left off. And so what I would assume is that if that were to happen, one left, the other 4 students would wait until April until we could fill the spot, just because we do want continuity in the students, so we don't want just pick anybody to come and fill in those spots. Right now, it would work out to we have a lot of next year we have juniors and seniors, and adding freshmen and sophomores on to kind of slowly be introduced to the committee. So I think that a spot would be filled eventually, but it might just take a bit.
Sorry.
Thank you.
My second question is, I like in the second paragraph where it talks about a consideration of diversity, or diversity of the student members should be a consideration. I'm wondering if that shouldn't be more of a priority, just because I think when we think of diversity, we're thinking of it in terms of race or ethnicity, but I think there's a whole host of diversity that we would really want as a priority. So for instance, male, female, the place where you live. Like I wouldn't want the full 5 students to all be living in the city or all be in the town. We'd want someone from Fairfield, like there's all these things there. So I'm just wondering if that language couldn't be bolstered by something like a priority or something that makes it a little bit more of a stronger build to.
We completely agree. That's exactly what we were thinking about, having it like be very diverse, as like you said, as much as we can, and that's why we kind of wanted to keep it open to see where we could take that and how we could implement that with the students, because there are so many kids that might, opening it up to everybody might present some challenges. But also we want it to be open to everyone, but it's hard to see that through all the way because it is such a big commitment. So yeah, I think that's an important thing to add or to solidify.
And if you don't mind, if you just also, where we had that discussion, the kids had that discussion talking about not only where you're from, but your socioeconomic background, and trying to make sure students that are not currently actively engaged, who are likely to be voted in, if you will, that there is representation. So we don't have the solution yet, but we're working on that.
So in that regard, I guess it would be better to keep that kind of vague.
Yeah, if I can chime in, Ryer, Brett Blanchard and I were working with the students, and that is actually one of their first concerns. And that's why they're talking about, do they really want it to be a student vote or not? And I want to give Leah and all her colleagues that are the 5 that have been putting this together, they're really thinking about that, like how do we get a good representation and we get an inclusion of different voices is probably the best way to say it. And they've been leading that. We talked about how specific and how vague, and we said there's good and bad about being specific. So that's why you see what you see in the second paragraph. But I know, and also Leah, one thing you didn't say, but this is a modeled off of Burlington's policy, correct?
So I don't have a third question, but I do want to say that I'm being really nitpicky here, Leah, because I am like a bit of a policy person and I serve on governance and a lot of statewide boards. So I'm just being very nitpicky, and you should not take it as any sort of diminishment on the work you guys did. This is a really great document, and you guys deserve a lot of kudos for it. So thank you for bringing it to us.
Also, don't forget to look back at the old BFA policy, because they had the policy of having board members for a while, and the way they were elected to be that. So you can look back at the BFA policy.
Great. Thanks, Al. So, Bill, would you recommend that we get more specificity to the policy or keep it vague? Because I like the questions that Ryer asked, and they're things that I'm sure most of us have considered all of that. How do we get the language in there to try to, I don't know what's the right word, like guarantee that all that happens, right? Without mandating it too much, but yet, I mean, I think Leah's got the right intention, and when she's speaking about it, she's speaking what we believe it is, but other people will have to follow this policy, so it needs to be written in such a way that the other people will be able to understand the intent of this current policy.
So
Having said that,
I have a recommendation for you. And
thank you.
It's really, I'm almost laughing with Leah. Leah, I hope you're kind of laughing, because this is the same conversation we had in the principal's conference room. What's policy and what's procedure? You have the policy in front of us, and then since it's my responsibility to produce procedure, and you can have those shown at any time, we need to put together a procedure, because it says the administration will put together a process for selection. Yep. And we can do that and show you how we would have consideration to make sure for the diversity, for the different types of diversity that we talked about, or that Ryer, you talked about, how we have that process that, one of the things, Leah, I've heard particularly from you, but also the rest of the students of being really wanting to make sure that this stays and goes beyond the 5 of you that are in school at BFA right now, and that there's a constant mentoring of new students up through the system. So I think that once we do this, and it wouldn't be me writing the procedure, I go right back to the students. And we'll put together a procedure that we can bring to the board once the policy is put in place. So that, I hope that that's.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense, actually. And that, you find that makes sense to you, Ryer, too?
Oh, yeah,
Address the issue?
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
reading that now. Yeah, process right there.
Any other questions come up?
Well, so, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Bill, because I was gonna say, I think that if you draw this thing between policy and procedure, I think it should be part of the policy that the students have a hand in developing the procedure.
That's
And that should be written, is my opinion. I don't know anyone else feels about that.
lets it live beyond you, Bill.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. No, it should never depend on one person. A system is not
Right.
built if it depends on one person.
How does the board feel about that?
I agree.
I think students should always be included.
Right. It seems, to me, it seems implicit in the process, but if it helps everyone to have the language in the
I could,
policy,
yeah, I could say, yeah, I think there could be a phrase put right after process and administered by the Maple Run administration. So we could talk about student developed process, something like that.
So they can have the ownership.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Leah, what do you think about that?
I think that's good. I think it makes sense
Okay,
to add, to ensure that it's there.
okay. I'm putting that on the to-do list that I've got in front of me already, too.
so the next step, Bill, we take a vote on this first reading, then it has to come back for a warning, correct?
If we go right to the second, and you can always decide there to have another just reading and not adopt it, but you could, at the next meeting, just adopt it. I'll talk with Leah and everyone else, and Brett, we can do one of our Wednesday morning meetings with the students and make sure.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be long, because I think and then we can also start drafting a process piece for that as well.
But we will have the option, if it's on the agenda next time, to either adopt or discuss another meeting, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so let's take a vote on this first reading. Approval of the first reading. Al?
I'm sorry?
Do
What are we voting on?
you approve of the first reading?
Well, I thought we were going to, from the discussion, it was going to come back with some adjustments.
I think it will come back with adjustments in the next version, correct, Bill?
Yes.
This is just sending this is just accepting it through the process.
Basically acknowledging that you've read you've had your first reading as a board.
What's your concern, Al?
Well, my concern is we're talking about a policy that we're going to make alternatives to, and before we actually read it for acceptance, it should come back for, it's more than just a minor change, but I'll vote okay.
So just for clarification, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that it will come back to the next time it's on the agenda. It will be on the agenda for either adoption or second reading. And at that point, we can choose to adopt and move it forward, or have a second reading with it and request additional modifications should we need to.
That's correct.
But the point is if you have modifications, then that's the first reading with modifications. So I understand what you're saying, Ms. Corey. You're holding it up. If you do modification, you have to have a first reading with those modifications. Otherwise, it's a different policy.
So we don't have a policy on policies as a board,
Right.
which is one of several that I'll be bringing to you next time of policies that you should really consider as a board.
Right?
So you don't, as a board, have a adopted process for how you do this. You have a practice, but there's no adopted process. And when Aaron and I went back through the minutes for several years, because he and I were talking about, in general, your policy piece, is that there isn't clarity in your process as a board through history.
Well, we definitely used to have one, so it might have gotten cleaned up in some of those cleanups that happened, but I don't care what way it happens, as long as the policy gets looked at, some of the changes that we've discussed get made, and it comes back to us. What would be the best approach to make that happen?
No, I like Peter's approach where it's a first reading with changes again.
Okay, so based on that, we take no action tonight. Those that are present take the discussion that we had under advisement while they make their changes. Is that correct? One second, Joanna, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have talked about some changes, but then we made a decision that there weren't gonna be changes. The only change that's going to be on there, because the other stuff goes under procedure, is the addition of saying that students will be part of the process. That is the only change that's being made to this policy. Everything else is under procedure. Is that correct, Bill?
Yeah, that you talked about, yes.
Yes.
That-
So
that was-
we're not making any significant changes. So I think that is where some confusion is lying right now.
Right. So Bill, if we take no action tonight, we still have to have a first reading, right?
So your history has been to at least have a first reading and a second reading. And the second reading, sometimes there's been adoption, sometimes there hasn't, with or without changes. I would advise that you stay to what your past practice has been, is at least to have a voted on, adopted first reading at a meeting, and then the next meeting you can adopt.
We're not warning it right now.
If we're
We're
just-
just reading it.
If we're just adding teachers to it, can't we just add teachers to it right now as a reading and just agree to that? It's literally 2 words.
Right,
Or not
Select-
teachers,
selected
but
through
and
a
students.
process.
It's right, yeah, the wording is, yeah, and the Maple Run administration, can we just add Maple Run students and administration and just have that be the reading?
Right, but we're still changing the policy, even though it's 2, we still have to let it be out in public.
We are.
Public.
We are, though,
I know,
right?
but online too, you gotta give them time. to look at. I know it's only 2 words,
You,
but that's, I
we
thought
have
we'd have
3
changes.
more times. We have another reading, we have a warning, and we have an adoption.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just power labeling that maybe
No,
more just get stuck on.
Well, I think, Joanna, we have 2 more times.
2 more.
We have a reading and then an adoption.
No, we've gotta warn it.
So I think we're getting hung up a little bit on the semantics and what they mean, but Jack, what's up? What you got?
My question is, do we actually need a vote? I mean, it's in the minutes that we've had a first reading. The whole purpose of having readings is to make changes, to have discussion, to make changes. We're not adopting this policy. If we do any kind of a motion, in my experience, we never like adopted the first reading. Or even, we had the first reading, but it's in the minutes that you're discussing it, we discussed it. I don't see why we need to have a vote, but if we have a vote, it wouldn't be to adopt, it's a vote to acknowledge that we had a first reading.
So I believe we need a vote. And I think that has been our practice. I believe this would be a vote to acknowledge the first reading.
Yeah.
I believe that if the policy comes back and it's substantially changed, then the person that brings the policy forward would indicate, these are the changes I made from last time. We make a decision at that point, whether it's substantive changes or minor changes. And if we feel like they are significant enough, then we call it another first reading because the changes have been that significant. If they haven't been, then we could move it forward for adoption, should we choose to as a board. That's how I get it.
I mean,
But
So maybe just, what was the motion? And where I'm getting confused is I was expecting to vote no to adopt so that it went back for a revision. But it sounds like we vote yes to acknowledge,
Yes.
but that may depend on the wording of the motion.
yeah, so is Aaron there? Can you read the motion?
The motion was to move the first reading.
Okay. That doesn't help, but
Yeah,
okay.
that's probably not the best worded motion, eh? Wow. So the things we get hung up on. Can we revise that motion? Can we have a motion to move the policy that is called student representative to the board along for a second reading? Can we call it that? The second reading doesn't say warning, nor does it say adoption. It just says second reading. Would that work, Bill?
Well, you should ask the person that motion and the person that's second if they would like to do that, or if someone wants to amend the motion. That would
Okay,
be Robert's rules.
persons that made the motion, was that Al and somebody? Al, was that you that made the motion?
It wasn't me.
And I think I said,
Discussion, yeah.
Would you take a
Who made the
friendly?
motion, please?
Al.
Okay. Are you willing to modify your motion?
I guess you couldn't hear me. I said, yes, it was me, and yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And what about the person that seconded it?
I believe that was me, and I am also willing to change it for clarity.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for that. Let's have a vote here on whatever we just did there, okay? So, Al,
Wait, before we get to Al, did I hear Grant move the table?
No.
No, okay,
He agreed with
No.
you.
okay,
no, we're moving this forward by hook or crook here.
yeah, okay,
Okay, Al,
yeah,
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes?
Joanna,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jack,
yes,
Ryer,
Yes.
and Nilda says yes. Well, thank you all for that. And Leah, thank you so much for coming and helping us with that and for your continued work with your team to make modifications to that policy for us. You're muted, hon. You're muted.
I said you're very welcome and thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye, Leah. Bye, Leah. Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
You can stay if you want.
I am gonna stay though, actually.
Okay. See how much fun that was? We've encouraged her to stay. Okay. Item 7B is graduation. So the principals are going to explain their graduation processes to us. This is my understanding. There's a SATEC graduation for 8th grade on June 8th. There's a SACS graduation for 8th grade on June 8th. Their Fairfield graduation for 8th grade on June 8th. You guys catching the pattern there?
A little bit.
And then there's a BFA graduation on June 11th. And there's a tech center one, and I can't remember the date of that.
The third of June.
June 3rd is tech center.
Yeah,
And that's not called graduation, it's called something else. Progression or,
Why don't we have Leanne explain it to us?
okay, Leanne, you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. We have what's called Northwest Career Tech Center Appreciation Night. So we appreciate all of our students on Friday. We get the luxury of having a 3-course plated meal put on by our chef instructor, Adam Monet, and his culinary students. And we award scholarships and recognize students for all their accomplishments over the last 2 years.
I've been to it in the past. It's a wonderful event.
Thank you, Nilda.
How about SATEC? Is there someone here from SATEC that can explain their process, please?
Sure.
Either come right to me if you'd like that, or
What's that?
you come right here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm fine. So, yes, it's SATEC, so interesting. This is the 4th year in a row that we probably are doing graduation maybe different than before because of everything going on. So I think this year, we're still gonna try to hold it outdoors if the weather, if it could be a night like tonight, that would be awesome. If not, we are gonna hold it indoors. So what we do, you know, the students are seated. We do welcome, the kids really help to run things. They do the Pledge of Allegiance. We hand out awards, students give speeches, and then the students are handed their certificates of promotion, and that wraps it up with a conclusion. So, and last year we had music, but we're going to be doing separate concerts this year. We didn't do that last year, so we won't have that as part of it. So it usually takes about an hour.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Kelsey, are you prepared to talk a little bit about Fairfield?
So again, we're going to have it on June 8th, and it's going to be, our hope is to have it outside as well. Last year was the first year we held it out on the parking lot, and it was actually great. So that's the plan to have it. And we're going to have two students. We had the class vote on who they wanted to speak at their graduation. And when we present their certificate of promotion, we're also going to read off the activities that they participated in, a little bit about each student, who they are, and then we created a funny award so that way everybody's recognized for something.
Thank you very much. And St. Albans City School.
So ours will look very, very similar. We'll be doing ours outdoors, but our event starts in the morning on the teams, and the teams will be doing awards, and they'll be doing the very individualized stuff for each student. And then the evening presentation will have student speakers. It'll be outdoors, and we will also have our band playing. So that's what we look like.
Nice, thanks, Joan. Brett, BFA?
Great, yeah, so we have ours at 11 a.m. on the 11th, and the plan is outdoors, but we'll make the call on the 10th in the morning, because if we'll be at the Collins Pearly Complex. So should the weather look inclement, we'll move that indoors so we can practice and have everything ready to go. The seniors practice on the 10th, Friday, that's 1300 at 1 p.m. And the board's invited to come afterwards at 3 p.m. for what is an overindulgence of mass pints of Ben and Jerry's. So you're welcome to come and participate in that. Parents come and everything, so it's nice. And that's where we are. Details already laid out. For people who want to see what's happening with seniors, just take a look at Teresa's weekly, since February, senior newsletter and senior news. So we've made sure more than once a week to get everything out there.
Thanks, Brett. So they're looking for one school board member to be in attendance at each of these events. And I'd like to give people priority to attend an event that their relative, son, daughter, brother, sister, whatever is engaged in, if we have those people. And otherwise, it's sort of open. We have any requests?
So, sorry, can I just stop you? We have Joanna here, but John, I don't know, we've lost our cameraman.
I was gonna say, the camera has been pretty
Yeah.
much stagnant here.
Where they went. I don't know if you can figure it out.
At the very least, can do this.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, John.
I speak now? I would like to request going to Fairfield this year. My daughter's graduating 8th grade,
and all of her friends. So I would love to do that, if possible.
Anybody else want to flip a coin with Joanna, or does that work?
More than one school board member go?
I think more than one board member can go, but we need to have somebody who's going to be up in the part of the process. You know what I mean?
Thank you, John and Mark.
What about St. Albans Town?
I have, my best friend's son is graduating. I was planning on attending anyway, so I will do that.
Nina, you have any kids graduating?
Not this year.
Seventh grade. Okay, city school.
I'd like to do city school, Tamina.
Nina. Okay. What about tech center? Anybody have anybody at the tech center? It's a great.
But I'll do it.
Yeah, Ryer said he can do it.
Ryer, you'll love it. I'm telling you.
You had me at food. So.
You'll love it. You'll love it. And you know what? I've even heard that people have brought their spouses before.
That'll count as a date for the year.
That would be date night. Okay, the next one is BFA, June 11th at 11th, because Brett did not want to go without pointing out that he also had a pattern.
I'd be happy to do BFA. I have a grandson at BFA.
Okay, Peter?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, so we have SATEC. Yeah?
I saw Jack's hand as well, but if
Oh, Jack, what are you interested in?
I will also do BFA. I'm gonna be away from the 2nd to the 9th. I have one grandchild in New Hampshire, has a musical he's in, and another grandchild on the 7th is graduating in Delaware from high school. So I will be gone that week, but the 11th I'll be back, so I can do BFA.
Okay, you and Peter can do the BFA thing. Okay, so Katie, SATEC, Nina, City School, Joanna, Fairfield, Peter, Jack, BFA, Tech Center is Ryer, and his date.
Say why.
He's texting her right
I hope that's
Hi, are you texting her right now? Let her know. It's me.
I have learned in this environment that I cannot make any assumptions. Okay. So on that note, next item on the agenda is board retreat. We're going to have a discussion about that, and also the summer meeting schedule. So Bill and I were talking about this, and in previous years, we would have a meeting in the first meeting of July, and then not have another meeting again till the second meeting in August. So it gave us sort of a six-ish week break of meetings, which is kind of nice, and it helps the administrators take a official break and sort of the month of July, and gives us all a break. Now, obviously, if we had some sort of emergency that needed to be addressed, we could put a meeting together in a couple of days if we had to. But how do people feel about that as one option for the summer meeting schedule? It's been done in the past, worked out well in the past.
So it would be.
Does anybody have objections to it?
So what is it again, Nilda?
So,
We have. Oh, sorry.
Nilda, maybe could I just add a couple of things so people?
Oh, I suppose. Sure.
I'm trying to be quiet over here.
No.
So it would be the third week in July, which is the 20th. And I'm trying to really encourage, we talked about the administrative team needing a break, and so we're really trying to encourage no one to be around in July unless needed. And then the first meeting in August would be the 3rd, which is the same week as the VPA, the Vermont Principals Association Conference, which we're using as our retreat as the leadership team. So we'd all be down in Killington, and at least I and John would have to rush back. So we'd like to, and that's been the pattern in the past, before COVID, was that those two meetings were off, but as Milda said, if we needed a meeting, we could get one put together.
So then we would do, are you suggesting the first? and
We do the
fifth?
first meeting on this, which would be July 6th, and then the next one would be August 17th. And on the 6th, I'll just add this in, Nilda, sorry, I don't think I told you this the other day when we were prepping, but Tim Beans has offered, and it's been done in years past, to host a board meeting at the Collins Pearly with a cookout.
Great.
And also invite the Collins Pearly board, just for some time for you folks to see each other. So, we both thought it was a good idea. Yeah, so you'd do a cookout and then we'd have a board meeting up there.
So any objections to any of those plans? As far as how things are going right now?
August 17th.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so let's talk about the board retreat. Bill.
Yeah. So, last year we had our retreat. It took a while for us to get together, but I think it was right at the beginning of September or late August. And I thought that worked pretty well. I would love everyone else's input, and what we might want to do. And we're gonna work with Phil Gore at the next meeting. And I don't know if it's Phil or if we want Mike DeWeese to come back, but I think this board has done, and I know this board's done a lot of tremendous work around governance, and we'll have some discussion about public participation. And I expect we'll be probably talking more about community engagement. So you'll want some time to have a couple of hours of retreat to have a meal and do some of that education piece that we did last year with someone. I think it's always helpful to have someone from the outside facilitate that. I always have too much to say, so I'm not a good one to facilitate, because should be partaking. So that was what, Nilda, you and I talked about a little bit the other day.
Right. I think it's worth seeing how it goes in 2 weeks with Phil Gore, and see if we want to tap into him being a, sort of a local and new person on the circuit. We know what Mr. I can't remember Dewey's first name. Mike. We know kind of how he rolls, and of course it worked for us, but perhaps going with someone different might just be a different way to go, especially if we prep him up appropriately. Plus, I think he'll get a good sense of us in 2 weeks anyway. And I think he stayed, if you guys notice, he stayed on our meeting 2 weeks ago for just about the whole thing. So I'm sure he picked up on our style and our, sort of nuances. So that's all good. So end of August, first part of September, does that sound doable? We could send out a doodle poll to see what works the best. We had a good location when we met at the Hardeck area last time. That was pretty nice for that time of year and what we did. Any objections?
I mean, if we're gonna meet on August 17th, is it possible to just have one meeting instead of two?
If that's a date that the board was interested in, we could. I haven't checked with anyone, and I want to thank Aaron for saying to me, let's get on top of this. Last year we were kind of scrambling, and so I just didn't want to scramble as much this year. And more was Joanna, I think your piece about the first thing for me is getting the date, and then we can start working on the other things.
Right. The same concept could happen, Joanna, with the first meeting of September too, right? We could have the first meeting of September also be that, and that way we'd not be involved in the actual summer.
Yes, I guess that would be my vote, because.
Try to consolidate, maybe even start a little earlier or something to make it all work.
Yeah. Please.
That makes sense to you, Bill?
Yeah, I think, why don't we do a check-in next board meeting, just to see, give people some think time between now and the next one, but preliminary kind of circle the first Wednesday in September as a retreat day that we could do. Maybe we could think about the first hour being a board meeting and retreat afterwards, or vice versa, or not even having the board meeting, just doing retreat. Yeah. So we could talk about this again on June 1st in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. All right, so we've got that item taken care of. Next item on the agenda is the flag raising topic, and I need a motion to approve the request for flag raising of the Black Lives Matter flag at the 5 schools. I
So
think all
moved.
5. Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Yeah.
It's Nina.
Thank you. Okay, for discussion, you have in your packet, item 7B is the request. So we approve the policy. And this is the actual application by the Justice, isn't it? The BFA Social Justice Club to raise the Black Lives Matter flag at all the schools. It's the BFA Tech Center, Fairfield City School, and a town school. And so it has, you've read the packet. Discussion, folks.
Nilda, could that include the complex as well, seeing I think that's probably the flagpole that has the most vision as people are driving by?
I think it probably could. Bill, any reason that it shouldn't?
No, I don't have any. And it's one of our flagpoles. It's probably something we need to amend to our procedure when we put this together, that it had the Collins Prelude complex on it as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks, Peter,
Thanks.
for
Good
catching
pickup, Peter. Thanks.
I also want to introduce Nicole Schubert, who's one of the advisors to the Social Justice Club is here. And Nicole, I'm sorry, I don't know all the students there in the club, but if any of the students are here, you could introduce them as well to be willing to take any questions. I know you are, but.
Hi there, I'm Nicole Schubert. I am a teacher at BFA and I advise the Social Justice Club. And I do have one of the students from the club, that is Leah Fitzgerald, who spoke earlier in the meeting. I don't believe there are any others, but Leah is here and she's been a huge piece of the puzzle for us for this 1.5-year process of the club to from beginning with building a survey that BFA students our club administered to BFA students via QR codes and hard work approaching students before school, during school, walking the halls with QR codes, emailing students, talking to teachers, talking to friends, talking to maybe not friends also. It was a lot of work on the club's part, and Leah was instrumental in that. I know you heard from Elio Hag in April, who presented to the board all of the data that our club compiled over the last several months. And yeah, I don't know what else to say here. Sorry, I wasn't quite prepared to speak, but.
You're absolutely fine. Thank you.
I just wanted to recognize you in case there were any questions from the board, and thank you for your hard work, and Leah as well.
Thank you. Leah, is there anything special you'd like to add?
Not specifically, except for that I'm really excited that we are finally here, and it's been a really long process, and I get that that's how it normally runs around here, but
I have a question.
Katie, you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a question. Have you guys heard of any other flags that have been mentioned that were looking to be raised at some point? Just curious at what that looks like.
Yeah, actually the GSA Club and also the Social Justice Club have been discussing raising the progressive pride flag during Pride Month, which happens to be June. There are other districts that have done the same thing. I know CBU district recently approved pride flags for the month of June, and it would just be for that month specifically. Whereas our request for the Black Lives Matter flag would be for the entire year for the district. So that's the only other flag I've heard about anyone discussing, and there's a lot of support from quite a few students for that.
I would have to add in, I had a conversation about the same flag with students at Fairfield twice, and I had told them that we were working on this policy, and once we got to the other side of that.
The progressive practice.
The progressive,
Yeah.
Well, I guess my other question is then, because we had that conversation last meeting. So this is saying that they want it raised for the entire year. But in our last meeting, we were saying that we didn't know if there was gonna be a time limit or what that was gonna look like. So this seems like a real like, hey, now it's a year. Like I'm feeling that's kind of, because we did talk about it not being for full years.
I think it's at the board's discretion.
At the board's discretion.
Right, but
We
when
did
we.
not put a timeframe on.
They
Right.
requested. Yeah,
But,
sorry.
right, but we're saying that there's other flags that wanna go up. And we talked
Well,
about.
I guess we have to wait till we get those requests, Katie, too, though.
Well, they just said, right, but they just said that they have two other ones that would like a shot. So, like, do they have to wait till the following year to put it up? Since this is asking for this specific flag for a year.
I don't know the answer. Bill? Bill, help!
Just, I'm laughing at the way she said it, I'm not laughing at the topic.
No, I said it like that on purpose.
I know you did. So, we haven't received a request from another entity, we have this one request. We know of those conversations. I would say that you have what's in front of you right now, and this is, I'm going back to the last meeting, that we said then, when we get second requests, we might talk about the timeline then. That could seem like, hey, we're kicking the can down the road. You could say, as a board, this is where it's totally up to you. We wanna have the Black Lives Matter flag up as much as possible with
Until such
respect
time.
to another one, and we put a time limit
Until
on
such
it.
time as another flag comes forward.
Right, you know,
But
to
can
me,
we-
that would be the short, I always wonder about over-analysis before we get into it, and saying, but then someone comes forward, okay, so we'd like this, and what's their request? And we would like the Black Lives Matter going back up or not? That's just kind of how I've been about it.
The policy that you folks approved said it shall remain through the end of the school year. Is that this year or next year? I don't get that as well. And that's why.
It says, the request here says, ASAP and before the end of the 21-22 school year.
That's to be for raising.
That's for this particular flag
To be raised.
request.
So by following the policy, it would be for the remainder of this school year?
Yeah, that's what.
Or
your policy-
is this request for next school year?
It's a proposed date and time for raising flag as soon as possible before the end of this school year, and your policy states to the end of the school year.
So at the end of this school year?
Or until we.
Yeah, you can change that, you can modify that, but.
Or
way
until the
policy
discretion.
reads.
Right.
And it sounds like it'll be the BFA Social Justice Club that puts the next request as well.
Potential.
So
Yeah.
presumably some of those logistics will have been considered by the folks putting in the requests.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so too, Grant. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that some of that will
Right.
work itself out.
Some of this may resolve on its own.
Yes.
Well, it does until it doesn't. And then we're here talking again about the same thing. So I mean, that's,
Well, let's stay in the here and now. The here and now is, we have one proposal, it's not asking for a year, it's asking to put it up now, and then our current policy says, by the end of the school year, or at the board's discretion. So, let's just roll with it for now.
so what are we voting on now? In your opinion, what are we voting on now? For the end of this school year? or
I'm
are we-
voting on
wait,
this
can I finish my
document
question?
right here.
Can I just finish the question, please? So the question says, are you voting on, it says at the board's discretion. Are you saying we use our discretion at this point to look towards next year as well? Or are we just saying till this year and then
No.
our discretion comes next year?
Right now, my proposal.
Peter,
Yes.
Peter, I think we're addressing this application in front of us,
Yes.
which says they're requesting for us to put it up before the end of the school year and keep it up to the end of the school year. So that's June, whatever graduation date we just heard was the 11th.
Okay.
So,
So
you
then they'll
know,
come
the
back at the end.
possibility
Beginning of
exists
next year.
that we could hang it from now to the 11th and then split to the pride flag for the rest of the month of June if we wanted to. I mean, there are solutions that are not super rocket science here to make this work. I think it's all about timing for this particular one, and I'm sure that these people really want their flag raised for longer than 2 weeks, but, you know, they can also pass the request forward again, right?
So
Yes, Briar?
Yeah, I just have two things. So first, I just want to hear from what Nicole has to say, if we could, or Leah,
Okay.
just what they want.
Nicole, can you come back, please?
She disappeared.
We just lost your
Oh, okay.
connection.
Maybe Leah can speak to it.
Maybe Leah can.
Yeah, I'd love to. Definitely looking for more than just the 2 weeks that we would have. I know that it does say on the request that before the end of the year, and I get that the policy that you guys made did say that until the end of the school year, but with the school year being so close to ending, it really wouldn't, I don't think it would be sufficient to just have it up for 2 weeks and then have to take it down and then go through the process again. But if that's what's in the policy, the club will be more than happy to redo the policy and have another request. But I think it's just more to the fact of having it up as soon as possible, because we have been going through it for so long. I don't quite know how it works with the policy, because it does say at the board's unless the board elects a different time frame, and maybe that's a request from the Social Justice Club to have the time frame be extended longer than just to the end of this school year.
To play by the policy, could we accept this as it is and then you just resubmit for the next year? And that way we can use this policy and move forward tonight, actually.
Yeah, I think if that is easiest and that's what's in the policy, which is pretty concrete, then I think that would make sense.
Could we just revise it to say until such time as another flag comes forward?
Well, Briar, though, I think in order to keep it clean, I think maybe Peter's solution is correct, because it ends it, it makes a new request. If the justice group wants to, you know, slip in the pride flag in between, they have that opportunity. They have their advisor and their student here hearing this discussion, so they might be able to pick up that cue, right? And manage to get both of the flags up this summer. Am I making sense?
I have a question. So if we're gonna do the let's say we decide to do the pride flag in June, would we not have a flag at all until September start date?
No.
Do we put the black flags back up?
No, I think people need to apply. And Bill, help me out here, because I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I think we have to follow our policy. I don't want to modify our policy just because our request came in the way it did, because that we can't keep modifying the policy based on how the request came in. I think we follow our policy. We use this request. We let Nicole and Leah hear what's going on. And if they have to file another request, I mean, you just take this form and refile it to us and get it to us by the next meeting and put your dates the way what you want them to be. And if the pride group wants to slip in a flag in between, they have that opportunity. We're assuming, making huge assumptions about the pride group. We don't know if they're going to send a application in right now or not. Am I making this too simple? I guess I'm just trying to get past it here, because I don't think it's this complex.
Right, I agree with that statement, Nilda. I don't think it's this complex. I think you can adopt what you have in front of you. If we get another request from anyone, the board can look at that request and decide if they want to honor it. And then we can talk about timing at that point. I also think that I agree with what the policy reads at the end of the year, and it could be as simple as the Social Justice Club sent us a request for next year at the next meeting, basically change the date of the application to June 1st or whatever, if it's tomorrow, and we have it, and this board can decide for next year right away.
Right.
And because I do agree that the power of your work as a board is to stay with the policies you have written until you change them. So you need to stay
Exactly.
where you're at. And
Right.
that
I mean, we
helps you.
just adopted it last meeting. I think we need to at least give it a chance to either succeed or fail based on our own experience. And I think Nicole's picking up on the nuances here, right, Nicole?
Yeah, I just had a question. I didn't see anywhere on the forum where there was a, when would you like the flag to be taken down? It just says, when would you like the flag to be put up?
Yeah.
And we said preferably before the end of the year, but we didn't say we only wanted it up until June 16th, which is the last day for students.
I understand. I would roll with that. Don't look for trouble. Just roll with it and put in another request. You know what I mean?
One of the problems, Nicole, is the way the policy was adopted last time, it ends at the end of a school year. And so we're trying to stay with our policy.
It doesn't though. That's
I
what I don't
know,
understand.
it says,
doesn't have to.
or at the
Yeah.
board's
I
discretion.
don't know why we
It
can't just
provided-
say,
Yeah.
just keep it up. I don't understand why we're having this,
We
the
can.
policy reads, we can just keep it up however long we want to. Nicole, do you know if, either group is gonna come forward with the progressive pride flag this month? No? Okay,
No,
okay, so.
yeah, I mean, it's been batted about, but no, I mean, this is our end goal, is the Black Lives Matter flag. So we're not gonna send in a progressive pride flag request. I'll hang one from my window for the kids.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, but isn't the point of a flag to, if kids want, we're saying that all groups should be heard, and this is the end game, the Black Lives Matter flag, I think it's important that everybody's represented, so.
She said they're not submitting anything.
Right, but I'm saying that if the goal is just to have the Black Lives Matter flag up, I think it's important that I don't want it to only be this flag. I want to make sure that, what if a kid comes and says that they want that flag? Would you be willing to say, okay?
Right. We could look at what CBU district is doing. They are actually ordering additional flagpoles so that they can have the Black Lives Matter flag and the pride flag during June. That's what's happening in the SD.
Right, but my question is, would you be willing to, if a student came to you and said, I want to fly this flag, but it would mean taking whatever flag we have up down for a little bit, would you be willing to say, okay, we'll fly that as well?
But Katie, I'm sorry, I'm being goofy here, but I don't think that's her choice. That's our choice. You guys just pointed that out to me. I think I'm rethinking what I originally said, and I'm kind of agreeing with what Ryer just said. We have the discretion because it's at the discretion of the board. So we have the discretion to extend beyond the end of this school year. Let's get another application for another flag before we decide we have a problem. When we get the next application for the next flag, then we'll figure out what discretion of the board means under that situation. Does that make sense?
Except when we vote on this particular request, are we voting till the end of this year, or is the board using its discretion, which I agree, it's written in the policy, is the board using its discretion to extend it indefinitely, technically, until through next year? In other words, what are we voting on?
I hear you. Grant?
So my understanding would be that the way the policy is written, so first off, we would be approving the application which says to raise the flag.
Right.
The way the policy is written, the default would be until the end of the year. If we take no action before the end of the year, that flag would come down. If before that flag comes down, we amend the time frame at the board's discretion with whatever type of flexibility we want, right? The time frame, I don't even know if it has to be continuous. It could be 2 weeks, take it down for a month, then through September until we get another, or whatever we feel like, right? We have the time frame at our discretion, and as long as we make that choice before the end of the year, it overrides the default, and we're good to go. And we would probably do that sort of in conjunction with the the group that put in the request to raise it in the first place.
I understand, and I totally agree.
Okay, great.
I think I do too. Does anybody disagree with that? Can we take a vote to raise the Black Lives Matter flag?
One thing to say, Nilda,
Yes.
I just want to thank Nicole, the Social Justice Club for this. You know, Friday, okay, I'm gonna get a little emotional, so I'm sorry, but Friday when I dropped my son and daughter off at school, at City School, in chalk written in front of one of the classrooms, and rather big lettering was the N-word. And for me, it was, you know, I read it and I got, you know, I tensed up, and then my son read it and he tensed up, and I recognized that feeling because I felt it before as a kid. So it was really hard, and I had to like drop him off and leave him at school and worry about what he was thinking the whole day. So that was hard. And then Saturday, with what happened at Buffalo, in Buffalo, it was really heartbreaking for me. And it was a really hard weekend and a really emotional weekend. And so this is such a buoy for me personally, not coming from a school board member, but just because I have a voice right now, I can say this is such a buoy for me. As a community member, as a person who has children at these schools, it just means so much to me. So I just really want to thank you, thank the board, thank all of you for doing this, because it really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan, for speaking out. And again, we're going to take the vote here. So Al,
Yay.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Ryer,
Yes.
Nelda votes yes. Motion carries. Again, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Leah, and your colleagues for the work you've done on this project. I think
Nelda,
Nicole looks pretty happy too.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just reacting to what Ryer said. As a BFA teacher, you know, we hear from students their experiences at the school that I think a lot of administrators a lot of times don't hear, especially in the Social Justice Club. I have students telling me what they hear in the hallways and what they see written around campus. And I mean, I've seen the N-word written on cars, including my own, you know, written in dirt on our cars. You know, the students get airdropped racist images. There's a child in my class who gets called porch monkey weekly. It's every day we hear these things, and this means a lot for our students, at BFA at all the schools. It means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is item E. It's unpaid leave. We have a request in our packet. It's attachment 7E. Administration is seeking approval for an unpaid leave request for Stephanie Fisher. Stephanie is a SATEC paraeducator. She has an attachment in the packet that explains her reason for the leave. Just as a note, the administration does not support this request. I need a motion to approve the request for discussion, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, for discussion, without naming the person or any of the details related to it, can we have a discussion here in executive without being an executive session? Or is there any anybody need any additional clarity, or people feeling pretty comfortable in where they are with this request? We have a motion and a second. You've all read the email. Administration doesn't support it, so the process would be to vote no. If we want to support the administration's non-support, we vote it down as a no. If we want to allow her to have her unpaid leave, we support the motion.
May
I'm
I
gonna
give,
take,
Hilda,
yes,
can I give a piece of information?
yes, sir.
The reason the administration does not support this request because it doesn't align with the agreement, master agreement.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have stated that, but yes. You ready to vote? All in favor of the motion to approve the unpaid leave? Al,
Yes,
yes, you're approving the unpaid leave?
yes,
Okay, Nina,
No.
Peter,
No.
Joanna,
No.
Grant,
No.
Katie,
No.
Jack,
No,
Ryer,
I'll abstain.
and Nilda votes no. I just want to make sure
I think we would like
of one thing, Al, that you understood what the motion was. The motion was to approve the unpaid leave request, which is not supported by administration.
yes, and I wanted to explain, I knew how the vote was gonna go. I also wanted to have a dissenting explanation because I had 2 puppies visit me today and I couldn't say no.
Okay, I understand. I didn't want to call you out on that so much as I wanted to make sure you caught all the information
So I
regarding the
knew
vote.
exactly what this is, but
Thank you, Al.
yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, so the motion fails. So, Bill, you can take that back to your people.
Yeah, we'll take care of it.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is other business. We're moving on to warrants. Administration seeks a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely. So can I have a motion to approve the warrants?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Al,
Yay.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Jack,
yes,
Ryer,
Yes.
and Nilda, yes. Thank you. Warrants are approved. All right, next item on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Yes, I have 2 things, Nilda. They'll kind of go into
Okay.
maybe 2 or 3. Let me give myself a little grace there. It's going to be 2 or 3. The first one, I wanted to let you know that we heard from the state of Vermont Department of Health. And I know in other years this has happened for Maple Run, but that we're awarded the Governor's Excellent and Worksite Wellness Award at the silver level for all of Maple Run. So our wellness program has been well received in the participation. I think it's participation rate that recognized that, and we have a lot of people that are part of that. And it's great to see our employees are taking advantage of it. Really, our employee assistance program and VHI, those 2 work together to promote wellness, physical and mental wellness, and it's just a great attribute for Maple Run. So I wanted to let all of you know that. The second one was last week I had the opportunity to spend some time at Saks on an evening, right before we had the Goals Subcommittee, and at their STEM night for parents to come and have some personal time with. They made them very small gatherings of 15 to 20 people. And after that, I thought about it, and tomorrow I will send all of you a calendar of events. There's a lot going on between now and the end of school, and I invite all of you as board members to at least 1 or 2 of them. And I thought I'd give you some of the events that are happening. As you all know, prom was this past weekend, but there are things from choral concerts that are starting the 19th, which is probably, I don't have my calendar for tomorrow. Thank you, Briar. Daughter, good. You're a proud dad. You'll be there, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I think if it were my daughter, I would be there, but I would hear it if I wasn't. So I encourage all of you, there's things like that. There's a band chorus concert here next week on the 24th. There are movie nights, BFA up at the Collins Pearly on the 26th. There's a Fairfield open house and concert on the 26th. There's an choral concert at the PAC on the 31st. Theater awards, instrumental concerts at the PAC. I've got a page and a half here that I'm not going to read all of them, but I will make sure, I shouldn't say I. Aaron, as he always does, takes a great job at servicing all of us, and we'll forward you a copy of these events, and you're more than invited. I'm trying to make 2 at each school for the end of the year, by the end of the year, but if all of you could, that'd be tremendous support. And the third piece I want to say is, last meeting you approved raises for the non-union administrators, and every administrator to Appoint wanted me to reply back to you, the board, of the support in which they felt from the board. So thank you very much for your support from the last meeting. They asked me to extend that to all of you. So that's what I have for you, Nelda. I'm keeping it short and sweet.
Thank you for sharing all that. Does anyone have any questions for Bill? Okay, next item on the agenda is board announcements. Any board announcements? Joanna?
Today, students, 8th graders from all over, I think Sheldon and clearly the other Maple Run schools, and I don't know what other schools were housed, but went to BFA for a STEM and Science Day. Some competitions, and I heard from both my daughter from Fairfield and from Sheldon students that it was wonderful. They had a great time, and they had fun with the competition. So thank you for hosting that.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other announcements from the board?
Yeah, Nelda, I just want to kind of stem off what Bill, sometimes I think our compensation, I still don't think it's probably enough of what the administration's done the last couple of years. I mean, Bill just reiterated today, this, especially SATEC and Angela covering three positions in one day and keeping the schools open. I just want to say thank you, and it doesn't seem like enough, but I wish we could do more. But thank you.
Thanks, Dina. Anyone else?
Yeah, just quickly, maybe a point of constructive criticism for the board. I think we had some really important and I think sort of powerful topics today. And I think we handled the content very well. I don't know how everyone else feels. I don't think we handled the logistics maybe as well as we could have. And I know a lot of that is myself as well, at least one of them. I had a hand especially in maybe confusing a little bit, but I think that's something we should try to do better as a board.
I would agree with that. I think some of the content was overshadowed by some of our discussion and confusion, and I hope that we can focus on the issues instead of the confusion. So thanks for bringing that up, Grant.
It's gonna be a hard time to say that, but I'm confused by that. I mean, I hate to add to the confusion. I'm not sure what's being said here.
So really, again, I mean, the content and the discussion I think was all very good.
Okay.
It was when it came time to do something like pass a motion, we had a lot of discussion about the logistics of how to do that. And I think we can do that better, so that it doesn't overshadow the content. And maybe it was only my opinion and not shared, but.
Well, and Grant, if that's the case, I mean, I apologize for the role I played in that. What I've noticed is that as prepared as I can be for this meeting, you guys can come up with questions that I have never thought of at all. And that does sort of put us in a situation where we have to try to figure out what the right response is, because then it suddenly becomes a decision on process for the board, right? And that is a little challenging because you guys are pretty loaded with questions, and you all have your sort of things that you focus on, you know, like process, wording, what about, you know, all those things, and they're all important. And when I sit here and listen, I go, I mean, that's why I went, Bill, you know, because sometimes there's just, I don't know the answer, you know, and we're all supposed to know the answers when we're chairing this. I guess I had to attend some more of those training things that I keep missing on Monday night, huh, Bill?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, thanks, everyone. I appreciate the feedback, and, you know, Grant, if you want to call me and give me a little details on how I could improve, I'd like to do that. Agenda for future meetings, I just want to reiterate here that we have the board member half vote that Raya brought up, the BFA school safety worker information that Joanna brought up, and the proficiency grading Joanna brought. We're starting to attach the requester to these so we can kind of keep track a little better to what's going on.
Thanks so much.
Any other business that needs to come before the board? Thank you all so much. We are adjourned. Please disconnect the recording.